Okay, let's go for Gerald now. So, Gerald is a very interesting character because Gerald, in terms of socialism and capitalism, he is part of the younger generation, but acts more like the older generation in terms of his views, in terms of how he doesn't progress as a character. So it's always very interesting to note in terms of the generation he belongs to and the way that he acts. So some key words and phrases. He is tactful. So tactful is a really good way to describe Gerald because he's skilled in dealing with difficult issues. It's almost like he's been trained for this. Of course, because he is aristocratic, so he, in terms of like the pyramid of society, he's right at the top, almost underneath royalty. He is very tactful. He's almost like media trained in the way that he deals with these. He seems almost very calm and collected. He's got an answer for everything. Of course, he does break slightly in terms of his interrogation with Eva/Daisy, but the way that he kind of even tells Sheila that he's had an affair with Eva/Daisy is very tactful. He's trying to manipulate her to say, oh, don't tell the inspector. And she turns around and goes to him, well, he probably already knows. Very tactful. Good one to describe him. Deceitful. Again, the way that he appears like an aristocratic gentleman. He's called a well-bred young man about town. So it seems like he's been born to do this. He's been born to take on this aristocratic role of this charming young man. But in actual fact, that is a cover. That's a facade. A facade means like a mask. That is a facade to his true immoral nature, where he's going around and cheating on his fiancée. He's disregarding her. He's completely lying, using his status to cover it all up. So we can see that he's very deceitful. And again, Precy's very clever with it. He makes, of course, Gerald, who is, of course, another capitalist, synonymous with these negative traits. Remember, synonymous, closely linked. Capitalism is deeply ingrained. So just like with Mr. and Mrs. Burling, it's deeply ingrained with him or entrenched with him. Either word you could use. It's even more ingrained in Gerald because of the class he belongs to. So just as a reminder, in terms of the class, imagine the class as a pyramid. The top of the class would be like the royals, the royal family. Underneath it would be the aristocrats, which is what Gerald would belong to. Then you've got the upper class. Then you've got the middle class. Then you've got the working class. So Gerald is of the aristocratic class because his mum and dad like a lord and lady. Whereas the Burlings are upper middle class. So kind of in the middle class bit, they're the upper bit of that, right? So he has capitalism more deeply ingrained with him than anyone else. And that is shown because he's part of the younger generation and he doesn't change. And that probably is because it's been more deeply ingrained with him because he's higher up in society. That's something as well to note for the character of Gerald. And he's fearful of societal rejection. Now, this one is really interesting. Again, on the Light Up Hub, we've got some unbelievable analysis on this. But in terms of linking it again to his aristocratic class, for him to change his beliefs, he's more likely to be banished from his social group or his social echelon, if we're being fancy. But he is more likely to be abandoned from them, to be left out. He's got more to lose. Because if he changes his opinion, everybody around him will disregard him. So he probably, out of everyone, has the most to lose in terms of changing his opinion. Okay, so this quote here. And I've told you, I was awfully busy at the works all the time. This was his excuse to Sheila about cheating on her with Daisy Renton. So this kind of links back to the idea of like being deceitful. Capitalism is his mask or facade, if you want to be really fancy. Facade is spelled F-A-C-A-D-E. So it's like his facade mask, same thing. It allows him to cower away from his responsibility and accept socialist beliefs. So the value of work is inherently a trait of capitalist values. So it is very interesting that he tries to use work as his excuse because, of course, capitalists favour working hard and he thinks that's the right thing to do. He thinks that Sheila is going to accept that because, of course, she's a capitalist, come from a capitalist father, and that is a good excuse not to see your fiancé. Of course, we know that this is completely deceitful because he's using capitalism because he knows it's a good excuse that Sheila will believe. He's using it as a mask for his infidelity, for his cheating scandal. Personal pronouns. So, unlike Eric, he uses these to abandon responsibility as he is an egotistical aristocrat. So when he's saying like, I've told you, I was awfully busy, he's not using them like Eric to accept responsibility. He's using it to deflect responsibility. So not accept, deflect, like change it out, like put it onto somebody else. He doesn't want to accept responsibility. He wants to deflect it, right? So he is an egotistical aristocrat. He thinks everything's about himself, because that is probably what his whole life has been up to this point, and particularly in regards to responsibility. He doesn't believe it's his problem. It's not him. He's deflecting it. It's nothing to do with him, right? That kind of links back to as well that capitalism being deeply ingrained within him. And potentially you could kind of also link it to the fear of societal rejection, and the fact that all he knows is to act like a selfish capitalist, and he knows if he starts accepting responsibility and being a socialist, he will be an outcast from society. And then the last quote for Gerald is, "Everything's all right now, Sheila. What about this ring?" This is in Act 3. Patriarchal. So he is trying to confine Sheila to her oppressive role as a subservient wife. Now, love the word oppressive. Oppressive means when you're trying to like reduce somebody, make them seem weaker. So he is asking her at the end, despite him admitting he was unfaithful to her, he kind of dismisses it as oh, what about this ring? Why don't we just get married again? Why don't we just forget about this? She's not actually dead, as obviously the inspector revealed. Well, the inspector was revealed not to be real. So he's going, well, she's not actually real. So we don't need to accept responsibility. We don't need to worry anymore. We should just get married. Of course, he's missed the whole point, because they still did what they did. And Eric does say that. So he has seen her socialist progression and fears this. So he is almost, you could see him offering up the ring, not as a token of love, but as a token of panic. He is panicked that Sheila has become a progressive socialist and will abandon him. Again, linking it back to societal rejection. It's not going to look good for a woman who is firstly of a lower class to him, and she's a woman at this time in a patriarchal society, male-dominated society, to reject him. No one would reject Gerald. So again, we could see this as a gesture and token of fear rather than love. Really like this idea as well. And also, there's something on the Light Up Hub as well. Again, for any of you who want to really take your analysis to the next level, we talk about the ring being like a metonym and how that links to marriage. Again, a really high-level, insightful analysis that you could add on to this as well. Condescending. He is tactful in his approach. So again, he's skilled in dealing with people, and he thinks this is the best approach for Sheila. He's aware of Sheila's extreme distress. He's aware of how distressed she is, but he just plays it in a way that he thinks will benefit himself. He is deceiving, cunning, and charming to entice her back into capitalism. So kind of linking it back to like she's gone to socialism, he's trying to draw her back to capitalism. He's trying to make her kind of go back to her roots and make sure that she is still confined by the oppressive bubble of both capitalism and the patriarchy. That is what he's trying to make sure of.